All right, in the next two lectures, you're going to learn how to evaluate a rental income property by yourself. In fact, you're not going to evaluate just a sample income property. You're going to evaluate one in a market that you're interested in, and you're going to look at the specific property that you want to look at as well. I'm going to show you how. So, first thing I want you to do is download the model that is associated with this lecture. And when you download it, I want you to open it up. So the file name is called BOE Jumpstart. When you open it up, you're going to see three worksheets here. Two at the bottom that are highlighted in yellow, and one that is for the example that I'm going to use in this lecture. So I want you to go to the Research tab first. And what you're going to see in front of you is what's here on the screen right now. You're going to see a lot of yellow cells on the screen. Now, I want to explain first what you're looking at, and then we're going to go ahead and use it, okay? So when we're looking at rental income properties, usually you're not just going to be looking at one property. You want to look at what other similar properties are being listed at. So one of the exercises we're going to do is we're going to find a group of properties that you may be interested in looking at in a particular neighborhood, and we're going to get some information about them, okay? And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at that same neighborhood, but we're going to look at recent sales, similar properties that have sold in the last 90 or 180 days, and we're going to look at what they were sold at, as well as taking some information about those properties. Then third, we're going to look at the rents of income properties right now in the market, properties that are being listed for rent. So we're going to get some rental comps as well. What the exercises for all these three are going to give us is going to give us a sense of what the listings are being listed at, but what the units or homes in the area, the rental properties, are actually being sold at recently. So we'll get to see whether where are they going to sell at a premium or at some sort of a discount from the listed price. That way you can get a better idea when you're looking at a listing in this particular market. Should you assume there's going to be a premium that you're going to have to pay, or should you assume that you might be able to get a discount? And lastly, the rental comps gives you a better idea of how much you can ask for in terms of rents when you do purchase a property in that market. So, all right, now each of these allow you to put in 7 properties to get comps. You don't have to use all of them, but for this example right here, I'm going to fill it all up, okay? So one of the first things I want you to do is I want you to open your browser. I have a browser here, and I want you to go to Zillow.com. So open it up. Type in www.zillow.com, okay? And what's going to happen is you're going to see something like this. So I want you to enter a market that you're interested in. So the market I'm going to be looking at is near downtown Las Vegas, and that's where I'm going to be looking at here. Specifically, there's a certain block that I'm going to be looking at, and I have it already set to here, all right? So once you kind of find a few block radius, a neighborhood that you're interested in looking at, what I want you to do is click on the symbol here that says for sale, and I want you to unclick everything else and only click for sale by agent, because that way we're only looking at listings that are listed by real estate agents, and we're not going to confuse things by those that are listed by owner or that are in other situations. Those that are listed by owner, sometimes, depending on what market you're in, could be really, really, really high. And most of them tend to be much higher than what are listed by agents. Owners tend to be delusional about the values that their property is worth. So we want to leave those out, and we want to look at only the ones that are listed by the agent, okay? And then I want you to set some parameter for the number of beds. For this example, I only want to look at rental income properties that are 3 bedrooms or more, okay? And I only want to look at houses. But for your example, you may want to look at different ones. The idea is you each want to try to keep it the same so that you can compare them on an equal basis. If you want to look at houses, just look at houses. You want to look at apartments or condos, look at condos, okay? But right now, let's say just click on houses first so that you can follow the exercise. Now go to the market that you're in, but you can click on houses. And again, I know it may be hard to follow along and do this at the same time. So if you feel behind, just pause this video, and then when you catch up, then continue to where I'm at, okay? So here, select only houses. And then for some of the other metrics, you can put in whatever you want. But the most important thing I wanted you to put is I want you to only look at some recent listings right now. So put it at 30 days, okay? And and when you do that, if there aren't enough listings that show up on your map, then what I want you to do is just zoom out here. You see that minus sign to the right? You can zoom out and it will show more listings for you, okay? But for this one, there's enough listings for me to look at. Okay, so then once you have this area and there's listings that are interesting in for you to look at, I want you to go to the right. You'll see that when you hover over a listing on the right, it will appear on the left to tell you which listing you're looking at. So right now, if I hover over this 147, that's where it's at. It shows up on the map. So what I want you to do is right click on the image here on the listing and then open new tab for it. Okay, just see it, create a new tab. And then what that does is it actually opens the listing page here. And it gives me some information along with photos and everything else, who the agents are, the address, the number of beds, bath, square footage, and the asking price, and some other information about the home, okay? So I want you to open up at least 3 of these, okay? And when you have opened up at least 3 of these, what I want you to do then is I want you to create a smaller version of this browser so that you can still see the listing. But then what I want you to do is to pull the Excel file right next to it. So you'll see something like this. So now I have my Excel document here, and then I have my listing here, okay, the first listing. And I want you to, so what we're going to do, you see here, the first line here, we're just going to put the address, maybe the street name, so that if you want to get back to it, you can easily look it up. So I put that. And for all of these right here on the left, it said, you see the include 1 equal to yes, 2 equal to no. It just means if you want this particular property to be included in the results that we're looking at. So if you're going to add it right now, let's make it a 1, okay? And then put in some other information, the square footage. So right there is 1364. I'm going to put that in, okay? Number of rooms is 3. Number of baths is 2. The lot size is 74005. Okay, and the year it was built, 1961. How many days has it been listed on Zillow? This one's recently listed, only 10 days. Listing price is $147,000. And you'll see that the cell underneath automatically calculates the asking price per square foot based on the square footage here. So this one's asking for $108 per square foot. And it's consistent with the calculation here on the site as well. When was it last sold? It was last sold October of 2010 at $78,250. So it was sold just a little less than 6 years ago at less than 2.5 times the price. Okay. So one other thing that I want you to do is this is going to be a subjective criteria for you to keep track of, because when you look at multiple listings, you don't just want to look at the numbers when it's asking for. You want to keep track of what you actually think about its curb appeal, or what you think of the fixtures that's inside. And as an investor, how much work is it going to take for you to bring this property to the level that you would feel comfortable with before you list it in the market? Okay, so let's do this one example right here. I'm looking at this in the front. It's fairly clean. If you're familiar with the Las Vegas market, this is kind of an average looking curb for the home. It's fairly clean. There's some that are worse, but there's some that are way better. Let's see if there's any other exterior photos. Nope, these are all kind of interior photos now. So the curb here, I would just give it something in the middle. It's pretty average. Although the fixtures look like this is recently renovated, in very good condition. So they're not really high quality, but they look clean, they look usable, they don't look like they need to be replaced. So I'm going to give it a 3.5. And in terms of the amount of work, if as an investor, there's really not too much. Probably clean up the front a little bit, make it more appealing. Maybe put some landscaping here in the front. So I'm going to give it a 2. Pretty easy work here. All right. So when you do that, after you do one of them, I want you to do it for all the other ones. Okay. Now, for the properties that are listed for sale, I have 7 here where I went through the whole process. Okay. And basically what I did was I just took the different listings here and created their own tabs and then went through and entered all the information for each of the properties. All right. Now what I want you to do when you're done with that, when you have at least 3 properties here like this, you don't have to have all 7 where you kind of created your criteria, you found all the information there and you punched it in. Then what I want you to do is go back to your original map. Okay. Go back to your original map here. And instead of for sale, I want you to click recently sold. Okay. And all things equal, you see that, well, maybe here I don't have as many sales comps. So I will extend the period that I'm looking at because right now it's only 30 days. Let's make it the last 90 days. And now with the last 90 days, you should have plenty of comps to look at. So these are sold within the last 3 months. And, while this real estate market can change quickly, most markets aren't going to change all that much in a matter of 30 to 60 days. So these are going to be pretty recent comparables. All right. So within the same market, I'm going to zoom in into this area and find relevant recently sold units. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing. So let's take an example. We're going to get this page, the property page. And then now instead of the part where we're putting it into the listed for sale, we're going to put it in the recently sold. Okay, so we're going to enter some information there, and this one will give us some information about this unit. So similar, let's put in the address, 6340 Bristol Way. We're going to include it in this here, and then we're going to put in the information. There's 3 beds, there's 3 beds, 2 baths. The square footage is 1216. Lot size is 6098. Was built in 1961. Last sold very recently because we were just looking at this. So just this last month, it was sold for $137,000. And let's take a look at the photos. This thing doesn't look too good in the front. This is not very appetizing for a potential renter. It looks very gloomy, right? Dark and gloomy. I'm going to give it a 2 for the curb appeal. Let's look inside. The inside looks a lot better. New paint. It looks like the fixtures and everything look relatively new. I'm going to give the fixtures a 4 here. And in terms of work, there's going to be more work in the front, but really nothing to do on the inside. So we give it a 2.5 for kind of an average amount of work in the front. All right, so you get the idea. Now do this for several more. Do this for at least 2 more in terms of sales comps for recently sold, okay? Until you get something like this where you have at least 3 comps here, 3 listings, and you have at least 3 comparables here, okay? With all this information. Now once you have that done, we're going to do it one last time. So one last time, what we're going to do is now this time we're going to put in some rental comps. So go back to your original map. And this whole time, make sure you save your original map so that you can stick in that range and you're not looking at something somewhere else. And everything you're doing is comparing it in the same market. So now we're going to go to here. Instead of recently sold, we're going to select for rent. Okay. And for rent, now this market, I see that there's not a lot of units for rent. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to zoom out a little more until I can see more comparables of rent in this area. So now that I have that, I'm going to open them up, look at the information, and we're going to enter them in. Okay, so this one's similar. You're going to put the address in just in case you want to be able to look at it again. Now the information is very similar, but except now we're going to be putting in the asking rent. Okay. Now, once you have all this information in there, see 3, 2, does that have lot size? Yep. Okay, so let's do that kind of photo. The front doesn't look very good either. What would you give that? Yeah, I would give it a 2 here. All right, fixtures. So you see that a lot of these for rent units here in this market, especially in Vegas, don't they seem like something that was bought and somebody kind of renovated and did some things to the front? Well, that's exactly the case that we're looking at. You're not going to be the only investor oftentimes doing these kinds of investments. And so here we see that the investors focus a lot more on the interior and didn't really do too much to the exterior. So inside, yeah, maybe 3.5. There's not much to do on the inside, but some work on the outside. Okay. So do that for all of these 3 parts: the properties listed for sale, recent sale comps, and then recent rents, until you have something like this, where you have enough properties, at least 3 properties up here that you're looking at least 3 sales comps, and at least 3 rental comps. Then I'm going to tell you what they all mean.